Mitzvah Reish Lamed Beis, HaMitzvah Hashtayim U'Shloshim Osayim. He Shetzivonu. Here, if you look at the Judeo-Arabic, it says Atashriya Shrana. So this is a religious law as a din, bedin, eved ivri. So the Torah lists the various dinim, what's supposed to happen, and the mitzvah is to act according to the dinim. V'omo yis'aleh ki sikne eved ivri. And in one of the Kisviyad, it's v'chulei also. So that makes it a little, maybe it's a little better, because it really is not just this posik nevivi, but it's all the dinim. And in fact, it's even more than that, because v'chulei doesn't really explain everything, because there are two other parshas in Bahar and in Re'eh. It's you look in Shmos Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Beis to Pasuk Vav, Vayikol Chaf Hei from Lamed Tes to Mem Gimel, and Devorim Tes Vav Yud Beis Yud Ches. So you have a whole slew of dinim that the Torah maps out in a few different places. L'cheira, they're all subsumed under this mitzvah din eved ivri. Then he continues, the Rambam, ukva hisparu roiv mishpatei mitzvah zo beferish b'Torah. So I'm not discussing whether the translation fits the words or not. I certainly am not an expert on that, but I certainly could say that the words, the way they are here, in the frame of reference that I understand around, don't make no sense. What difference does it make if rave is one way or rave is another way? Sedin from rave b'Torah, stuff to mean it's beferish b'Torah or not. L'cheira, it's completely irrelevant. In Kapach, the word rave is not there. Okay. And in Kapach, you read something like Ufa Hisvaru, Mishpatei Mitzazu, not beferish b'Torah, bepsuke atera. Bepsuke atera makes a lot more sense. We understand what it is. Because if you recall, what makes the shirano or the din into a mitzvah, as the Rama maps out in mitzvah Tzadi Hey, in the mitzvah of Mafos Nedorim, what makes it into a mitzvah is the fact that the Torah spends time and delineates and maps out the various dinim of Mafos Nedorim, of Av and in Baal, and here it maps out all the various dinim of Ukfa Hisparu, Mishpatei, Mitzvah Zo, Bipsuki Atera. It's mamish beautiful. It fits into the paradigm of what we know as a mitzvah that is dinim. So, if you recall, I mentioned this many occasions. The Minchas Chinuch, I think it's tough, Kuf Tzadi Ches or something like that, the mitzvah of Yib Machlitz or something, I'm not mistaken. He says that the mitzvah of Toyin V'Nitan is a mitzvah minyan mitzvah, there's no kiyum. But, and I assume that in mitzvah muchletis there is kiyum. And then, so there's no kiyum in the mitzvah of Eved. We just have to act according to Torah law. Now, however, I want to point that interesting observation, okay? So in these parashas, there were a few lavim. Lo yimochim im keres eved, shir avdenu beforech, shel navoid ba'avodas aved. Let's leave the last one out. Not sure how much of a kasha it is. But we count all the different lavim, the separate lavim in the minyan. So I was only wondering that Shirano is only in Mitzvas Aseh, and it means to act according to Torah law. But when there's a clear ashara, that's in Mitzvahs independent of everything. Even though you could have said that it's assumed under the dinim, but the Ram doesn't look at it that way at all. And you only find Shiran in Mitzvah Aseh, and Lavim, the Ram counts separately. So it's just the observation, we'll have to understand it sometime more, but that's what's happening. Now, let's start. The open up Hilchos Avodim in Perek Aleph Halacha Gimel. The Ram goes like this. I think it goes to Halacha Dalet also, Gimel Dalet. Not mistaken. The Ram goes like this. Eved Ivri Shemochu Bezdin Ein Moichen Eisel Yisrael Olo Getzed. Bezdin can only sell him to a Yisrael or Getzed. V'chein HaMoiche Atzmoi Enu Ashoy Limko Atzmoi L'Goy. Okay. V'imovo Mocha Atzmoi Afilu Le'ovid Avodah Zorah. Not only Goy but Ovid Avodah Zorah. V'afilu L'Avodah Avodah Atzmoi means he sell to an Avodah Zorah. I don't know exactly what buying is. Harizeh Mocho, the Mechir is Chal. Even you shouldn't do it, but the Mechir is Chal. Shnema o le'eker mishpachas ger. Le'eker ze nimto la'avodah zorah. Bo v'yomer lecho, hareini moicha atzmi l'goyim, eina tozochek l'goy. You don't have to be bothered with him. Ad she'yimoche. Once he's sold, then you have to deal with this. Once he sells himself. But the threat, you don't have to be concerned about. Okay? Shenemar achrei nimkar gu'ula tihiyelod. So the Rambam is not a drosha shlo yitam stam. It's a posik l'Torah. Achrei nimkar gu'ula tihiyelod. And he says, mitzvah lifdoisai. So l'chayra, there's a mitzvah lifdois. Eved Ivri hanim kol hagoyim. So one may ask, why is it a separate mitzvah in Minyan HaMitzvos? Because the Parsha Nifredes, which deals with the pidyon of an Eved Ivri hanim kol hagoyim. And you find it in Bahar, Perek Chof Hei, Posek Mem Zayin to Nun Hei. V'chisasig Yad Ger v'soyshe b'imoch, u'moch chicho imoy, v'nim kol ger toisho, imoch, o le'eka mishpachas ger. See, he was sold to these people. You don't want Achrei nimka gula tiyelod. Achrei nimka gula tiyelod. Echod me'echov yigolenu. O dodo, o ben dodo yigolenu. O misher beso, mishpachto yigolenu. Oy hisiga yodo v'nigo. V'chishiv im koneu. Mishnas imocho loy ad shnas hayovel. V'hoya kesem im koroi b'mispar shonim he may sochia yelo. So you pay up according to how many years he has left until the yovel. V'chishiv im koneu. Mishnas imocho loy ad shnas hayovel. V'hoya kesem im koroi b'mispar shonim he may schia yemo. Im oid rabashon yafon. Lefian Yoshi Gulasa Mikesef Miknosa. So it goes according to years. Ma'at Nisha Bishon Machnasa Yeva V'Chishavloi Lefi Shonov Yoshiv Es Gulasa. So Shonov V'Chulei V'Im Lo Yigoel V'Eile V'Yotza B'Shnasa Yovel Hu Von of Imoy Ki Libene Yisrael Avodim V'Chulei. So the ganze powers you could imagine it's a separate mitzvah. That's the Rambam. Quotes the dino of this parasha. Hanimka legoy. Im lo hisigu yoda ligol atzmoy. Koivov koidinoisoy. Bakov akov koidim. There's a whole seder in Pidyon. Shenemo odoidoy ben doidoy yigolenu. Ubez the koifin es koivov liftoisoy. Shlo yitma bagoyim. Lo loy paduhu koivov o she'ed yodam maseges mitzvah kol Yisrael odam Yisrael liftoisay ubein shepaduhu koivim bein shepaduhu shar odam yotz lecheres. So here we basically have to understand what the mitzvah called Odom Yisrael Liftoisay is. The question is, does it fit into the parasha or not? How does it fit into the parasha? However, I saw an Achreidim, and I'm just not sure that I would say like that this mitzvah is really a mitzvah of Pidyon Shvuyim. And as the Ram quotes in Perek Chesed V'Chus Matnas Aniyim Alocha Yud Gimel. The Ram says, Misha Mocha Atzmoy Ubonov L'Goyim O Shelovo Mehen V'Shovu Oison O Osruhu Be'avoson Pam Rishoina Shniya Mitzvah L'Vdoison Shlishis Ein Poid Noison Avu Poidin Es Habonim Le'acha Misas Aviyim V'im bikshu lahogon, lahogoi, hoidnoi seviyodam, afilu achra kamapom. So, l'cheira, I don't think Pidyon Shvuyim has nothing to do with the fact that he was moich as an eved, because even if it was a halva, or even that they took it from his father's or his loan or his loan, it also has the same din in Pidyon Shvuyim. Here, l'cheira, what we're talking about in Hilchos Avodim is dafka a moich nimkalaku, and l'cheira, the whole seder of Akov Kov Koidem was only said here in Hilchos Avodim Nimkol Goy. But the dinim of Pidyon Shvuyim, the Ram doesn't quote it in Perek Chesed Aloch Yud Gimel. So the Rambam a priori learns, and I think it's mistaba like that once you say there are three parshas of everything, so then you say that all the dinim mentioned in the Torah about Eved Ivri go under these, go under the same mitzvah called Din Eved Ivri, and therefore it doesn't count. It is a separate mitzvah. That I think is mistaba. And you find something like this. This is even simple in that. For example, you find in the mitzvah of Yovel, a mitzvah to give back kalkoyos, and on the Yovel itself, that's a mitzvah kufla meches. The Rambam adds, "V'kvar diktik akosa b'mitzvah zo u'bir eich yeh din moiche v'akoina k'shiyitza liftoisai nachlosai hanim keres koidem higiazman shnas hayovel." So the schus to be paid to the kalka and to buy it back according to the reduced rate is also part of the mitzvah shovas kalkois. So here, certainly I can imagine that the din of Geula is part of the mitzvah of the din of Ivri. The only thing that I could question, I just don't know. I wouldn't understand. Someone asked me, and you'll see it a little bit more later when I started. If someone asked me, is there kiyum of this piyat shvuna of gulit yeloi and a kov koida? I would have said absolutely. So I would have said it really is not a shrana. So the question is, if you have a disparate dinam, but on the other hand, you have a disparate mitzvah, which is a kiyum in it, you could have imagined counting it separately. And I'll explain to you why I say this, and things will become a little bit murky. For example, there's another mitzvah of Hanik Tanik. That's also a fruish in the parashas. But the strange thing is, the Ram counts Hanik Tanik as a separate mitzvah. Here you have it. He has, let's say in Hilchos Avodim, Lahanik lo b'tseisai chovshi. It's a separate mitzvah. And it's also Mechal. It's in the Parsha from Urei. It's the Parsha from Ivri. So I'd ask you, why is it subsumed under the Ivri? So I would say, Hanik Tanik is a kiyum, and therefore it's separate. So when I do Hanik Tanik, and I say it's a kiyum, and it's not subsumed that it did Ivri, then I ask myself, if I had a choice between Hanik Tanik as a kiyum and Gula Yelo said, Shal Yitma ben Agoyim, I would have chosen Hanik Tanik. Maybe I'm choosing wrong. So I'm just saying it's a little odd. So I'm not sure if this rule that I have is really a rule. And if it is a rule that kilu you only assume dinim under dinim, but if there are kiyumim, then they would be separate. So question is, why are you machalik between Hanik Tanik, which is a separate mitzvah in Minyan, according to the Rambam, and the mitzvah of Gula by Mocha Atzma L'Goy. you see, I can prove to you that Hanik Tanik is a cube. In Minyan HaKotzer, the Lashon is Lahanik, Le'evid Ivri, Shenema, Heyonik, Hanik Tanik Lo, V'chule, V'cheilom Avriya. So, and also, in Kuf Tzadivov, Kuf Tzadivov, yeah, like this. Kuf Tzadivov. Hatzivush Davido Lahanik. So drums Alamar. So since an Amar, it's a mitzvah muchletes, so you to be a kiyum. And Avraya that there's a kiyum. How do you know it's a kiyum? Because the Ram says Hanik Tanik is a lavan ditlaseh. And lavan ditlaseh, this kiyum, but like kiyum, bitol, bitol. So you assume it's a kiyum of mitzvah. In Perek Gimel V'Luchos Avodim Malach Yudalet, Kol Meshalech Avdoi V'Amosei Reikom, Oive B'Lei Saseh. Shenema Lo Yishalchenu Reikom. V'Yakosu Niskoi Li'aseh. Shenema Hanik Tanik Lo. And the Kesef Mishnah says, Umashe Kosov, Yakosu Niskoi Li'aseh, Taimoy Mishum, Tahavi Kmo Shiluach Hakan. Tichsiv Lo Yisika Chaim Alabonim, Shalach Tishalach Evra. Chom Have Lava Ditalaseh. So the question is it only the fact that it's a kiyum over here, and maybe there's a kiyum in Gula? Yeah. Or maybe the fact that there's a lav anita laseh, and the Ram always proves from lav anita laseh that it's a mitzvah in mitzvahs, except in the Ashois, where he's just saying there's no malchus. So maybe that's a separate reason to make it a mitzvah in minyan mitzvahs. And maybe the fact that the kiyum is not enough. And maybe you can split between Geula and to buy back the Ever from a Goy and Hanik Tanik. So that's, I thought, a very interesting thing. I'm not sure 100% what to do with it, but I think that the question itself is a very valid and interesting question. Now, Rav Sadigoy in Perek Yud Gimel on page 104 in his Minyan HaMitzvos of Sadigoy, which is published recently from the Geniza. V'tziva b'mechirosai sheish mitzvahs. There's 6 mitzvahs that are by the mechira of a Eved Ivri. Imhu gever v'ochiv ayuhu v'ochiv Yehudi koinoisai v'ochiv Yehudi koinoisai hu oivdoi sheish shonim bovad she'omroi Isik Eved Ivri sheish shonim v'goymer v'imsirei, and he doesn't want to leave. How hu koiroi adonoi v'oivdoi. Ad hazman hakolo li'acha mishnei hazmanim. Chai odom, the termination of a life of his master. O shnas hashicho, which is shnas hayovel. Kfi she'omar v'imomar yoimar eved ad seif hapisuk. So what he does is he splits the parsha of Eved Ivri into two. There's the Sheish, and then there's the Yovel Chayo Adonai. Maybe this is at least partial. I'm not sure. Maybe we can have many other cases like this in Eved Ivri, but at least part of it is expression of Rav Sadi Goin's opinion that he's chaylik on Shurish Shvi'i, and different expressions of the same mitzvah, Pesach Rishon, that's it, different of the same mitzvah, like Korban Oil V'Yored, Ashiras, Dalus, Dalus, are counted as separate mitzvahs. Similarly, over here, there's different expression of the mitzvah of Eved Ivri. There's one that is over for Sheish, and there's one that is over Arayovel, or to Misodon. However, the Rambam, who happens to have Shiur Shvi and doesn't count permutations, does not count. This is a separate mitzvah. The only problem left with the Rambam is just to understand when and how to differentiate between Hanik Tanik, which is Aseh, which is a separate mitzvah, minyan mitzvahs. Maybe that's enough. And Gu'ulatia, which we would assume is a kiyum. And since we assume it's a kiyum, maybe that is enough to make it into a mitzvah. And the Rambam doesn't do that. Now, next mitzvah. Mitzvah Reish Lamed Gimel. Mitzvah Hasholosh Ushloshim Umosayim. He Shetzivono. So here, let's check what Sivono is. Now, certain mitzvahs say everyone's going to be interesting, and most of them are Shranas. This one's an Amal. Very explicit in the Arabic. So, l'chayot tzivui muchot. What is he supposed to do? Lisa Omer Ivriya. To marry the Omer Ivriya. I assume it's an Amal, like a Dushi doesn't have to marry her. He doesn't want to marry a lady. The lady wants to marry him. But if he wants, and she wants, l'chayot is a mitzvah to marry. Lisa Omer Ivriya. Come back to this. Im adoineho shekono oiso o benoi. This im in Ibn Tibet is very odd, and I think the bane of Kapach, bane adoneo shekono oiso o benoi. So there are two options of you. It's either the father or the son. V'zui mitzvah yud. Or Be'omu mitzvahs yud, Tedemis the mitzvahs b'di, will come to this mitzvah Shem also. Le'omoi asher lo ya'odo v'hefta. Okay. So here, the Rambam quotes the Mishnah in Bechiros. Be'omu mitzvahs yud kedemis the mitzvahs b'dia is a raya that is a mitzvah. The interesting thing, the Rambam quotes the Mishnah B'cheres by the mitzvah of Yud, not by the mitzvah of P'tiyah, the next mitzvah, which is Reish Lamed Daled. Okay. However, when it comes to B'chol Petach Hamor, the Rambam quotes the mitzvah of this Mishnah in B'cheres. He quotes it by Arifa, not by P'tiyah. So the question is, why does he quote it by Petach Hamor, by Arifa, and not by P'tiyah? And here he quotes it by P'tiyah, by Yud, and not by P'tiyah. So what I think over here is the following. Let's go back and understand Mitzvah. Let's go back in Mitzvah say Pei Beis and understand what he's quoting. In the mitzvah of Arifa, of Petach Hamor, the Ram says, V'yesh l'makshe sheyikshe olai v'yoymer lo ze dovo le'eze dovo monisa p'tiyosei v'arifa b'shtei mitzvahs. The question is Arifa and P'tiyah two mitzvahs or one mitzvah? V'lo monisa oisa mitzvah achas v'tiyeh arifosei midini ha-mitzvah. And it should be part and subsumed. Arifa should be part of mitzvahs P'tiyah. Kamoi shekibalta b'shoresh hashvi. The different ways to make the mitzvah, all one mitzvah. The same way that korban oil is not three mitzvahs, one mitzvah. The mitzvah of P'tiyah and Arifa is also should be one. Hine yodei hakel ki hahekesh hoy mechayev ze. Logic would mandate this. Lule mashe matzono l'Rabbi Seinu Zal loshon yoira ala yoset shtei mitzvahs v'omram mitzvahs P'tiyah chedemes lemitzvahs Arifa u'mitzvahs yibum chedemes lemitzvahs chalitza u'kmo she'yavomo muchenes im liyibum o lechalitza. It's either one of the two. Vayibum mitzvah, v'chalitza mitzvah. Kol achas mitzvah b'fnei atzma. Kmo sheniska ke. And we'll explain later when we get to the mitzvah of, which is the mitzvah of yibum chalitza. Kain petach hamor muchan o lep'tiyah o l'arifa. V'zu mitzvah kmo she'amar. Here, he's not bothered that it should be one mitzvah. Here he's asking whether Lisa or Civria should be a mitzvah, because he doesn't quote it in the second one. And Kilo asked the question, no, it should all be one. He's asking why yield should be a mitzvah. So the question is, what's the problem? And what does he need to prove for? So I think it's like this. You have to ask yourself a question. I think once I ask it, the question will be so obvious, everyone should kick themselves, why didn't he ask the question? But until I got to the point, didn't get it immediately. Let's continue and read. The Torah says, "Imro be'ene adoneho, asher lo yo'odo vehefto." So it means, l'chera, that the Torah describes a situation where the ordering and maybe the Ben also didn't want to be miyayed the Avriya. Okay. Does it say anywhere in the Torah a tzivui to miyayed the Avriya? All the Torah says the opposite case. Im lo yo'odo vehefto. So vehefto, which is quoted in the next mitzvah that we know, is a mitzvah. Well, all the Torah says, if he doesn't do X, if he doesn't do Yiyud, then he does. Then there's a mitzvah's pidyon. But there's no tzivui of Yiyud. But interesting, the Ram quotes as the source of the mitzvah, Lo Amroi, Asher Lo Ye'odo, Vehefto. So it's an amazing thing. There's no tzivui in the Torah to do Yiyud, and we come with a mitzvah. So maybe it's only because of the Mesilas Chazal of mitzvahs Yiyud, Kedemis LeMitzvahs B'diyah. But the question is, so that I think is the start. So the question now is not baffling. It's an amazing thing. Asher lo yo'od vehefto is a mitzvah. And if you would have asked me, I would have said, Me'echetese. So maybe just the opposite. I could have imagined that there's a din in the Torah that there's a din of Yiyud, because the Torah said lo yoda, so the Torah is saying there's a din of Yiyud. So I could have imagined that it's a shrana. But how does it become an amal? And that's what Ram says, the bits an amal. So I'm only wondering, maybe there's something more in this, that the mitzvahs, mitzvahs b'diyah kodemis mitzvah arifa, or mitzvahs yibum kodemis chali, the mitzvah chalitza, the whole idea of kodem, the whole idea of seder, it's a seder of kiyumim. And maybe they chazal matiki shmur by saying mitzvahs yiyud kodemis the mitzvahs b'diyah, they're saying an amazing thing, that there's a kiyum over here. And that's a proof that it's an amal, and you need this. So there's amazing things. It means the Torah, imro be'eni areneho, asher lo yo'odo vehefto. So l'chayr means if it's not ro'o, he should do a yiyud. So in implication, in Torah shebiksav is enough for tzivui. Is this something like we have in the mitzvah mishmoris? It says itoch, and kil, there's no verb there. We understand from the context there's a tzivui, and we made it into an amal. So maybe, actually, I'm not sure if we learn it because the Torah says mitzvah of pediyah kodemis, mitzvah yiyu kodemis mitzvah pediyah. We learn it from that, or that's a gilui that this. But look, what's happening over here there's an implied sivui, because if it's not ro'ah, you should do a yiyud. And that's a mitzvah. And you can have, here is the best case that I see, that you can have an implied sivui as a mitzvah in the minyan. And I just say, no, that's you need mitzvahs you, because there was mitzvah chalin, pediyah. And if Chazal had not said that, we wouldn't have known, maybe. But I think it's a very interesting question. Now, I just found something, but not sure that it's true. So l'cheira, once it's an amal, and once we have the mitzvahs, yiud kodem v'chalitza, l'cheira is a kiyum mitzvah. That's why it's an amal, like we said for the minchas chinuch. So l'cheira, you can imagine making a bracha on yiud. In fact, I found in Derech Pikudecha, in Mitzvas Aseh Mem Gimel, Chelik Adibo Isei, Hovadad B'Shas Hayud Tzorch Levorach Asher Kedishana B'Mitzvah B'Tzivono Al Aroyes V'Oslo Asasuy Sitlo Asasuy Slo Kumoy B'Chol Amikachim Shal Noshim. So I'm not sure, since it's a separate mitzvah, maybe the nusach should be about yiyud. The not so. I'm not sure what the nusach will be, because every mitzvah, Asher Yisrael mitzvah yisrael, and the Ram is ready to say it's a raya, it's a mitzvah, because Asher Yisrael mitzvah yisrael. So I would assume that every separate mitzvah has a separate bracha, or you can say many mitzvahs the same bracha, but I wouldn't. It's difficult to imagine the mitzvah of kedushin and the mitzvah of yiyud should have the same bracha. Okay, I don't know. I have now a few interesting questions. Okay. Let's start with this one, and then we'll go on to other ones. But I think it's interesting. We paskin the mosi we shoinim l'shen kedushin. And the Rambam paskins it in Perik Dalet of Hilchos Avodim. Halacha Zayin. Ketzad mitzvah siyud. Oimer lo b'fnei shnayim. Hariat mukudeshesli. Hariat mugesesli. Hariat li liisha. Afilu b'seif sheish tomel shiyez achamo. Ve'eno tzorch litein lo klum. Shemos rishoinois l'kidushin ditno. V'noisem bo minig ishus. V'noig bo minig ishus. Ve'eno noig bo minig shiftus. You act to work like a man and a wife. So, first of all, the Rambam, if you look over here in Perek Dalach Hazayin, he only mentions Moses Shoyes L'Shen Kedushin Nitnu, and he doesn't mention the possibility of a yiyud b'shtar. We shouldn't talk about it, but the Rambam doesn't have it. So I have a simple question, and I think the question is good enough, and I can leave it unanswered, even though you'll be disappointed I don't have an answer, but I think you'll be excited about the question. The Ram's opinion in Mishnah Torah, Sefer Mitzvos, maybe he hasn't gotten to that point, that, but it's really not important for us at the moment, because Shtar is irrelevant, that Kedushei Torah in Sefer Mitzvos is only Kedushei Bia, and in Mishnah Torah, it's Kedushei Shtar and Bia. It's only in Madua Basra that he throws in Kesavir. Okay? So I asked the following question. Since it's a double portion of Chazal, the modus operandi of Yud is to the modus operandi of Kiddushin. So how does one do Yud Asher Lo Yodo in Torah Shebiksav? What does he do? He gave money before, and Moses showed him the Kiddushin did. But the Rebbeinu showed him Kiddushin Kesef is only a drasha. It's not din Torah. So what's the pshat in this mitzvah? How do you do the mitzvah? How do you do Yiyud? That's my question. Okay. And it's a question only according to the Rambam, the Shitosai. How does it work? Okay. That is first question. Now, I'm a little bit confused over here. Because is the mitzvah of Yiyud to make Hariyat Miuedisli, Hariyat Ishti, or the mitzvah of Yiyud is to the Sun? So the Ram over here seems to say, and he says it also in mitzvah Reish Lamed Gimel by Kapach, the mitzvah is Lisa Chavria, is to marry her. And this the mitzvah Yud. The mitzvah Yud is the Kedushin, the marriage. The marriage is it becomes part of the mitzvah. Is it? If you look over here, yeah. Reish Yud Gimel. So I think we translated is problem translation. It's over here, which is not kosher. Oh, it's really like Isuin, maybe like that. Isa. No, you just have to compare. We have to go back and see the translation. There's a problem with the Arabic over here in Reish Yud Gimel. See, I'm just wondering. See, he calls the mitzvah Kiddushin, but the mitzvah is Kiddushin plus marriage with the Suin. Later on, another place he does say that. Question is, what's over here? Well, the word it means the Suin also in Reish Yud Gimel. No bloy, I think seems to say something like that. So we have to understand what the mitzvah over here, but the impression is that the Yiyud by itself, without marrying her, is not enough. See, the question only I'd ask, so I would say Nicha. But where do you see, what does the word Yiyud mean? Yiyud means to marry her by saying Ariyah at Ishti with most Rishonos, or me, and it then go into the Suin? I mean, how does it all work? Where does the Rama pick up the word of the Suin, and how do we know that's part of the mitzvah? So basically, now, just to sum it up, there are two things I don't understand 100% this mitzvah. Number one, I don't understand what the Yud Vatera is. And I always thought the Moshe Shalom Sheikh Kedusha did. But the Rambam, who negates the option of Kedusha Torah through Kesef, unless it's going, he hasn't come to this point in Sefer Mitzvos. Madula Basra Mishnah Torah he did. But if Kedusha Kesef is only with the Sefer, so what's the Yud Toshel Torah? And the second question, what is the Nisuin over here? It's a Yud. Say that. Next, at the end, the Ram now has a discussion, a line or two, which the first line refers to both mitzvahs. And choose how to reverse the lines. I would written now after Shelo Yodav Hefto Ukfa Hisparu Mishpatei Mitzvazo Perik Rishon Miseches Kedusha, which is Mitzvazo, and Mitzvazo is referring to Yud. Similarly, where the Ram says, "Kfa v'Ispaya did Mitzvazo Kuloi v'Rishon Miseches Kedusha," we told whatever Ivri. Then I would have made a second statement, which he's making a remark, which is for both mitzvahs, v'da shedin eved ivri, v'din om ivriya. I don't understand exactly what he's referring to. I don't know what he means, din om ivriya. There's no mitzvah din om ivriya. We find, I would have assumed that all the dinim om ivriya, which are dinim of kinyan, how he goes out, come the din of eved ivri. And om ivriya has a din of Lisa om ivriya, and also by Pidyon om ivriya, which are very peculiar to om ivriya. So we have to know, what does he mean by din om ivriya? Do all the dinim om ivriya that are similar to eved ivri go into the mitzvah eved ivri, and all that's left over is Yud and Pidyon? But then I'd ask myself, why would I call it din om ivriya? Because these two mitzvahs are not dinim, they're amal, they're mitzvah muchletes. So what is din? And he seems to be referring to this mitzvah as din om ivriya. So I'm not sure, I don't understand how this happened. Okay? So this is a very interesting line and has to be understood. Einoi noiheg ele bisman shayovel noiheg. There's no eved ivri and there's no om ivriya except bisman shayovel noiheg. That okay. It says like this in Pilchus Avod in Perik Aleph Halacha Yud. Ein om ivriya noiheges v'loy eved ivri noyeg ele bisman shayovel noyeg bein eved ivri shemoicher atzmoi bein ze shemochu bezdin ukvar biyanu mosai bitlu ayoivos. And there also has this in Perik Yud of Hilchos Yovel, Sheet of Yovel Lochetes. So I assume when he's talking about din om ivriya, He's not referring to any mitzvah. He's just saying the whole concept of Avriya only exists b'shas yovel. So any mitzvah which is entangled with Avriya doesn't exist b'zman shayovel no, I guess. I'm not sure why he put this line over here and not after mitzvah reish lamed daled. Because reish lamed daled, he says the mitzvah pidyon of Avriya. So it also depends upon bizman shayovel no. So it should have been after that. Okay, here let's continue a little bit. Mitzvah arba u'shloshim osayim he shetzivonu b'pidyon. Here again, the tzivonu is a amount. It's a mitzvah muchletes. Tzivui muchel. I put in the word pidyon because that's an all the kisviyad. And Ibn Tibet it says liftos, but I don't know where he got it from because in the original Judeo-Arabic it says a pidyon. But pidyon Avriya. V'omo yis'aleh v'hefto. See here you have a tzivud. Im lo yodo v'hefto, there's no tzivud. But v'hefto, we certainly have a tzivud. Upedi zo yesh bo tiktukim utnoim ubo mishpotim rab. By Spar Meseches Kedushin, B'shom Spar Dino Mivriya Al Shleimus. Over Mechilta. So here it's again. He does the same thing. Din, and that's in the original Judeo-Arabic. Dino Mivriya. Over Mechilta. This is Rabbi Shmuel. Omrei beferish v'im sholosh elu lo yaseh lo, and they interpret. How do you interpret beferish? Omu beferish. It means as a pirush makubal from Moshe Rabbeinu. Or what's the pshat in v'im sholosh elu lo yaseh lo? What are the three things? Omru. The Matiki Ashmur said, Yaed locho, you can either do it for you, for yourself, or livonech, or to your son, or pedei oiso. There's three options, and there's three tzivuyim over here. And that is what he's quoting the mitzvah. And this l'chayr is a raya, that is a mitzvah of a pidyon. And the it's also raya, there's a mitzvah of Yiud. But he has, anyway, I mean, for pidyon and Yiud, he has the mission b'chayos of both of them he could have used. Okay, say that. Okay, so we have to understand, and this will be clear for next time, Mitzvah Hashem. What is he supposed to do? What is the mitzvah, and upon whom is this mitzvah? And Mitzvah Hashem will pick up next week.